I'm Sandy Peckinpah, and I'm an author, a woman's resilience mentor, a writing coach, and I love scoping about using your life story as the backdrop for creating the greatest life you can ever imagine. And I'm so glad you're joining me today. Here, let me flip this around. Sally's here. Sally, you're all the way in Mexico. Hello, my dear. Let's see, here we go. Oh my goodness, it is so good to be here today. I have had the most wonderful day, and thank you for joining me on this beautiful Sunday before Christmas. I am so grateful. And Sally is scoping all the way from Puerto Vallarta. And Sally, I saw your beautiful picture last night, and my heart is with you. I know it's a tough time of year for you, as it is for many people who struggle with loss. And I want to tell you, my heart is with you. I know how difficult this is. And, you know, we all just have to surround each other with uplifting prayers and thoughts, and that's what we need to do. That gives us the foundation for believing that we have the support in life that we need, is if we hear it from other people. And today, if you have an opportunity, I want you to really look at the possibility of picking up the phone and telling someone that you're supporting them. Chris, thank you for joining me. And Sally, I'm so glad you're back. I know it's a struggle with the web service down there in Mexico. So anyway, I'm Sandy Peckinpah, and I love scoping about your life story and using it to empower you to create a great life. So glad you're here. And so I wanted to talk to you about today something that I have really researched a lot in my own life, because I've had a lot of transitional life experiences that I've shared in previous broadcasts. And if you're just joining me today, just a little bit of a background that I am an author. I've written 4 books, and Cynthia's in the house, yay. I've written 4 published books and several ebooks. And I have found writing to be the greatest asset in my life to healing. And it also has created my legacy. And by that I mean, what am I contributing to the world? And my words are my gift. And I didn't realize that or trust it for a long time until I put certain tools and practices in place and created a successful writing platform for myself and to be able to share with others. And so part of that has also been reinventing my own life. You know, I have consistently had a lot of difficult struggles in my life, as have every one of you at some time or another. And I used to think that I had a fairy tale life, that if I was a good girl, nothing bad would ever happen. Well, that all changed. Let's see, first started when I was about 38, when I gave birth to my daughter, my 3rd child, who was born with a very severe facial defect. And today she's a miracle, because the doctors worked wonders and created just a beautiful repair of her external cleft, and she is just gorgeous today. But the next time that I was really challenged, and again, this is for the benefit of you who are joining me that don't know my story, and I'll run through this quickly because I think it's important to what we're talking about today. The next big event in my life that I thought, how could this have happened to me, was the loss of my son. He died of bacterial meningitis one day, and it was literally, I could say, he died of bacterial meningitis one day, because he woke up with a fever in the morning and was dead the next day. And it was a tremendous, life-changing, life-altering, took me to the ground event in my life. And I know that there are some of you who have joined me. Chris, thank you. I know there are some of you that are on this broadcast who've had the same experience I have, but what I've found is that there is hope for life after loss. There's hope for life after any difficult life experience, and I've gone on to create a successful business for myself, a successful writing career, and a successful life and happiness. And I never thought I would have the potential to be happy again, but it took careful planning, and that's what I'm so excited to talk to you about today, because I want to share the 3 ways to start taking the next big step in your life. And so many people struggle with that. They don't know what to do. They get confused. They struggle with the consequences of everything, and then they struggle with the handcuffs or the ball and chain that hold them to the past, so that they think that they are forever doomed to what they've already experienced. And Chris, wow, thanks for sharing this. I really appreciate that. And so what I'm here to tell you is that if you implement and put certain structures into place, and these are things that I'm going to be discussing over the next several weeks, because I have a plan for you all. I have a big plan for 2016 for all of you, and I know you're going to join me and walk this path with me, because it is so exciting. I can hardly wait to wake up in the morning every day, because I'm planning 2016. And so my question to you, Star Lily is back, yay. So in looking at 2016, the question that I want to ask you is, do you want 2016 to mirror what you experienced in 2015? Or do you want something more, or better, or different, or life-changing, or legendary? Take a choice. You have a choice of all of those things happening. And I want to share with you the first step that we're going to talk about today. The very first one, and it comes in 3 forms. So again, ask yourself this question. And before I go on, thank you for the hearts. They're so energizing. I have over 40,000 hearts, and I haven't been periscoping that long, but what I want to thank you for is the support, because those hearts and your participation in my broadcasts every night, and those of you, it shows that we only have 6 on air, but I know that when I go to the web, there are so many more of you that join me on the web that don't show up, and I'm getting wonderful feedback. What that tells me is that I'm giving you value, and believe me, that fuels me. That makes me feel so good. I want to keep giving you what I've learned, not to mention replay viewers. Exactly. Thank you. I am really loving this experience, because I was on the radio for 3 years in Northern California on AM Talk Radio, and it was a wonderful experience. I did a show called Passion by Design, and I had some nice feedback on that show, and I really enjoyed it. But what I missed was the interaction, and this is what Periscope gives all of us, is the opportunity for us to share our story, to share what we're doing here and now, and get feedback immediately. It is life-changing for me in being able to share my message, because this is the way I've always dreamed of doing it. And, I was thinking, Star Lily says, love Periscope for the real-time interaction and authenticity. Exactly. I was thinking about this, what it does is it shows us as real people. And we have an opportunity to connect with our audience like we never have before. Because nothing has to be planned, although I plan every Periscope so that I give you value. But, I don't have to plan on getting to a stage. I don't have to, wait for cameras to be set up. I was an actress in the 80s and 90s. I had to do hair and makeup and lighting and sound checks and, mic'd up to the, everywhere. And it was just, I loved acting. I really did. I didn't do it a lot, but I was on several TV shows and a couple of TV movies, and I loved it. But it didn't give me what I was looking for in my ability to connect with the audience, especially TV, because On stage, you get to hear applause, and so you know that you've done a good job, but in television it airs, and if somebody saw it, great. But Periscope is an opportunity for all of us on Periscope to share our message, to do what we do best, and to give you an opportunity to connect with other people. Here comes my kitty. She wants to see what I'm doing. You want to see what I'm doing? Huh? She's my muse. She has to sit right at my computer screen while I'm writing and watches the cursor as it moves along. And come here, kitty. Come here. Come here. You know what? She won't come from behind the computer. Come on. If she comes a little bit more, I'm a crazy cat lady too. She's so precious. Come on. Come in my lap. Will you come in my lap? She's so precious. So she's my buddy. Okay, so again, do you want to take the next big step? Because I'm ready and I want to take you with me. I am so ready. And so here's what I want to share with you is that it's a process. And no one does this by accident, not a single one of us. If we did it by accident, it would be like a marathon runner just showing up the day of a marathon and expecting to win. Well, it doesn't quite work that way, does it? I mean, do any of you really think that that's the way it works to be a winner? No, none of you think that. And so we can't just let life happen. We have to take steps and plan for the next step. And so in taking the next step, that means creating and laying the groundwork. So I have 3 steps I'm going to talk to you about, but they're all under one umbrella. So athletes will tell you that a good part of their process is mindset. And I can tell you as a trained actress, a good part of my preparation was mindset. I had to study the character. I had to go back in time and look at where did that character come from? What was her background? What was her past? What motivated her to really have the life that she had at this moment in time that the show is being filmed? And it's mindset. Yes, Chris, exactly. And so I would create a whole background story. And as I've shared, I was married to David Peckinpah, who was a screenwriter and wrote movies for television and for film. And he had several hit shows, one of them being Sliders, which is a sci-fi show with Jerry O'Connell, and I was actually on that one. And Silk Stockings, and my absolute favorite one was Beauty and the Beast on CBS with Linda Hamilton and Ron Perlman. And David and I used to spend a tremendous amount of time creating backstory for characters and story arcs. And if I didn't, I shared in the beginning, but for the benefit of you joining me, a lot of what I talk about is writing, but writing applies to life. Creating stories apply to life, and all of it creates the patchwork and the puzzle that fits together. So this is really important. Yes, thank you for confirming that. And thank you for all of the hearts. I love the green hearts. Those are pretty. And there are some pink ones, so thank you. And so with mindset, so much of it is getting your bearings. So getting your bearings means drawing a list of things that where you've come from. And so you look at your background. And is your background holding you prisoner? Or is it giving you the gift of hindsight? And I call hindsight wisdom. And getting your bearings is a huge part of being able to take that next step. And that means resolving some issues. And it means saying goodbye to some things that you're holding on to that cause anger and upset inside of you. It means finding peace in things that you've never been able to find peace about. Like the loss of my son. It took me a long time to feel peace of heart again. And one of my best friends in life, Paula McChesney, said, "Sandy, what is it you want most?" And I know you can't have your son back, but what is it you want most? And you know what I said? Peace of heart. Peace of heart. Now, can that come after you've lost a child? I didn't think so. I didn't think it would ever come again. I didn't think I'd ever feel peaceful or joy or happiness in my heart. But you know what? I did. I have, and I am. It does happen. And that's an important thing for you all to know, that no matter what has happened, that you will find peace and happiness again if you actively pursue it. And that's what we're going to talk about. So I have 3 steps. This all falls under the umbrella of visualization. Now that's sort of a tired word in the self-help industry, but I'm going to give you a little bit of insight to it that will refresh it and make it new again, okay? Because we've all heard of all the things that, you know, The Secret and all of that. Well, that was a huge part of what inspired me. But research went on to prove that just visualizing isn't quite enough. And so I really had to look at so many more avenues of making things happen for myself. But I also wanted to know why. And so Brene Brown says, she says, draw a list of things that make you happy and fuel your drive. It's the thing that makes your heart flutter. It's the thing that makes you come alive. Oh, that rhymes. I added that. That rhymes. And so I started looking at the things that made me happy and the things that people said I was good at doing when I was in the process of creating my happy life again, a life that felt fulfilling. And fulfilling is a word that I want to use a lot. Is it fulfilling? Is your life fulfilling? That's an important part of happiness, because the road to happiness has to be fueling you with fulfilling feelings, or you get tired and you lose your way. And so in visualizing, you need to take time with your body, your mind, and your spirit. And here's the most important thing with visualizing, is you need to believe it. So here are 3 ways that you can start believing that what you're doing is making progress toward you realizing your dreams. Thank you for the pink hearts. Oh, they almost match my shirt, don't they? Okay, so 1, and this is what I did in acting. This is what my husband and I did when we were creating scripts, when we were creating characters. The biggest part of your brain that is untapped in so many people is imagination. And Jack Canfield says, if you can imagine it, it can happen. I saw him on Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul Sunday, and I was so impressed with his interview, and I didn't expect to be, because people know him for Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I think we're all sort of, like, okay, yeah, another Chicken Soup for the Soul book. But let me tell you, Jack Canfield has learned so much about life and his own passion that he awakened me to things that I had no idea. And I was so glad to have caught that interview in rerun, because I loved it. If you haven't seen it and you can catch it, I highly recommend it. So he said, if you can dream it, you have the ability to achieve it. And here's step 1, imagine it. Use the imagination you had as a child, and you all had it. You all played games. You all created characters. If you can imagine yourself, the character that you want to be, research shows if you imagine it clearly, that is called outcome simulation. That means that it increases the chances of it happening. Because, all right, I have a great story for you. Are you ready? I hope. One of my best friends was Miss Universe in 1982. She is such a dear, and she has been a lifelong friend. And we were in acting class, Jeff Corey's acting class together. And I took classes from Jeff Corey for 5 years and loved every minute of it. And Jeff taught me so much about character development. Yes, Chris, outcome simulation. So here's an example of outcome simulation. One of my best friends, Karen, she was 19 years old, and she imagined herself wearing a crown, walking down the aisle as Miss Universe for months before. And lo and behold, when the pageant took place, it was exactly as she imagined it. And she was the first Miss Universe that Canada had ever had. And I am so proud to know her and to see what visualization did for her. She said, Sandy, I just kept visualizing that crown on my head, and I would practice walking around my apartment with a crown on my head, believing that it was going to happen. And isn't that cool? Yes. And so she was actually the first person to talk to me about visualization, and that was in the early 1980s, I think. She made it happen. So that's outcome simulation. Step 1, imagination. And if you really believe it, that's outcome simulation. Step 2 is called picture it. Process simulation. And process simulation means, for instance, browsing the internet and looking at the car that you want, or the person that you want to emulate or learn from. Or say, for instance, you want to, this is an example that Jack Canfield gave in his interview. Say, for instance, your passion is to open a business. Maybe it's a yoga studio. Okay, so picture simulation, which is process simulation. You start looking at spaces. You start looking at real estate, what's available for rent in your area. You get contractor bids. You start drawing up what you want the walls to look like, pulling pictures out of magazines, looking at photos that you might want to hang on the wall, looking at floor samples of the perfect yoga studio. And by looking at it, these are tasks that help you stimulate the dream. And I keep looking at my notes. That's why I'm looking off to the side, because I don't want to miss anything. So I hope you don't mind. So these are tasks that help you realize your dream. And the third way, and this is the way that I have created everything in my life. And by everything, and Chris, you're new to my broadcast, I think. So I want to add one more part to my story after losing my son. My beautiful 25-year creative marriage did not survive the loss of our child. And W. Raleigh 27, thank you for joining us. I'm just sharing a little bit of my story, but I've also given 2 really important points to taking the next big step under the umbrella of visualization. But these are steps that actually give you tactile ways to make it happen. And the third one is the way it's like turning on the ignition in your brain. I'm so excited to share this with you. So in sharing my story, for the benefit of you that haven't heard it, this last part is that after our child died, our beautiful creative marriage didn't survive the loss. So we divorced, and the very intensely sad thing that happened is that my husband really struggled, and I say that he died of a broken heart. He never could reconcile the grief or go through the processes of that loss, and he died of a massive heart attack at 54. And I am so fortunate to say that a month or 2 before he died, we were in the process of reconciling our differences and getting our lives together again. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And we were in the process of reconnecting our relationship. And in fact, I was working on a script with him. He wanted me to read it and give him feedback as we used to do. That was our marriage. It was so creatively alive. And then he suddenly died, and it was far too young. far too young at 54. But what I had to do was I had to create a whole new life for myself, because suddenly I was the only sole support of my remaining 3 children, who are very much alive and very beautiful and very successful today. And I'm happy to say that through visualization and through implementation and the struggle that I had, and I don't even call it a struggle, that's not the word I want to use. Can we just retract that word and say the passion that I had for really resurrecting a life and making it happen was a process of visualization. And this third part is critical. I used what I learned in writing. Characters, creating characters as an actress and working with my husband, was that this takes your visualization to the next level, because guess what it's doing? It's unlocking your brain. It takes that imagination from the place of playing games and just staying inside of you and seeing it a picture in your mind and then visualizing it in pictures on the internet or on your vision board. What it does is it takes it from your brain out the end of your hand and onto your paper. And I say onto your paper because many people like to write on the computer, but I'm telling you, there's a process that happens with the motor skills of actually writing that is stimulating. And this is proven. I did the research for my book, and I wrote a book for the benefit of those of you who don't know this. I wrote a book just last year called How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen. It's a step-by-step guide for parents surviving the loss of a child. And we're very proud to say it's won a lot of awards, and I'm thrilled. And it's my son's legacy. That's the most important thing, is that I believe that no child dies without a legacy and a purpose for those that are left behind. And for me, it was to create a book that could help other parents survive this terrible, terrible loss that no parent should ever have to imagine. And so in writing that book, I did a lot of research because I journaled for healing. And what I didn't realize is how important the journal is for creating your future and for a meter and a monitor of how far you've come. And so what I did in journaling when I first started after my son died, and the first day I could only write one sentence, and that sentence was, "My child died and my life will never be the same." That's all I could write. Oh, it still gives me goosebumps when I think about it, because I had no words. I had no words because they were all inside of me, hurting so much. And they wanted to come out. And I knew if I could just get them onto paper, that I could look at it and start healing. And so I wrote that sentence, and the next day I was able to write a few more sentences until I continued writing, and I've never stopped. And that journal became not only my resource for healing, but I began to see a pattern in my hope for the future, because I could look back on all of the things that I had written, and I could see how far I've come. So that's what I want to tell you about the power of writing. It comes out the end of your pen. Your mind and your heart begin to believe it. And you can read it and read it out loud over and over again. And suddenly, you start creating your future. Your future comes from your thoughts. And Jack Canfield is right. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. And so we need to make our brains become our partners and stop the negative self-talk and stop the restrictive feelings that we have on what our past has been. Instead, it's going to be your partner for your future. And you can listen to it if you write it down. Your brain becomes your advocate, not your enemy. And that's so important. So this is what I do to write. And then I'm going to leave you with that thought. By writing, you're giving yourself a conscious step, a big step toward your future, toward your success. And here's another thing. This is really important, so listen to this. And thank you for those beautiful, they're almost a periwinkle blue heart. I love it. Thank you. Oh, you know what? It matches the flowers that she's holding in that painting behind me. Okay. So here's a huge caution about dreaming and visualizing and picturing. Don't talk about it. Now, as weird as this sounds, I've seen it kill so many dreams. And I watched it happen over and over again when my husband and I first started in the entertainment business, and we'd have ideas for scripts. And yes, thank you, Chris. That validates it. It would kill scripts. It would absolutely kill a script. Because my husband and I were a creative team, so we talked about it. We were partners. But when we started talking about what was going on with the script outside of ourselves, and we'd talk about it at a dinner party, people would say, "What are you working on?" And you know, we would talk about the latest script and what's it about? Well, what happens? Well, who are the characters? Guess what? You lose your enthusiasm. And it kills it because it makes you think you've already written it. It makes you think that you've already achieved it. It makes you think that it's already happened, and your brain stops getting excited about it. And so you keep it excited in your own mind, in your own vision, and keep that dream alive by writing it down and repeating it every day out loud to yourself, the things that you want to happen, but don't talk about it with other people. I mean, you can take the steps with other people, and you can say, "Oh, I'd really like to have help with doing things," and ask for mentors and all that. But keep your dreams inside of you so they can just explode, and you write them on the written page, and then you're going to take the next step toward achieving them, and the next step, and the very next step, and before you know it, you've done it. That's exactly what I did with my book, How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen. I didn't really tell people I was writing it. I just sat down and I made my commitment to write it, and from the hours of 4 to 8 every day, I set my intention to write my book. And by the way, I want to talk about my writer's challenge, so I don't want to forget that. So if I start to forget it, could somebody remind me? So I'd set my intention to write every day from 4 to 8, and I'm telling you, as working as a professional writer and watching my husband work as a professional screenwriter, is that you have to know how important ritual is, and we'll talk about that in the writing challenge, is you have to do it on a regular basis. Consistency is key. And so I would sit down every day from 4 to 8, and I mean, I would be a writing machine, and the brain, I mean, I would just be so into my writing, and before you know it, I'd look up and the house would be dark, and it was dark outside, and I had just been in this wonderful, yes, I would write for 4 hours. Rosie, thank you. I would write for 4 hours. And I would suddenly, it's like being in a trance. And this is what I'm saying. And I hope if any of you have just joined me, you'll go back and watch the replay, because I've given you 3 really important steps toward making visualization really work for you. And it would be like I would be in a trance. And suddenly, I would be done, and I would reread it and think, wow, where did that come from? I mean, it just astounds me to this day. And this is not just me. This is so many writers that I know, that they had no idea the potential, the wealth, the massive amount of brain power to visualize and imagine what they're writing on the page. It's huge. And it all just takes waking it up and committing to it and being consistent. So that is my Periscope for the day. One more thing. I'm going to be doing January 11th, a 5-day Periscope writing challenge. It's absolutely free. I just want you to join me. I'm going to get you started. I'm going to talk about the tools and techniques that both my husband and I use. Thank you, Chris. That both my husband and I used to really be consistent with our writing and get you on the path. If you've ever said, oh, I wish I could write. And most people say that to me. Most people, when they find out I'm an author, they'll say, oh, I've always wanted to write a book. Okay, well, you know what? Here, send me your contact info through message on Twitter. If you want to take a screenshot, I'm at Sandy Peckinpah. Okay, great. Or you can email me at, oh gosh, where's my card that has my email? Well, it's somewhere. Hold on, I'm going to get it for you. Okay, is that it? No. Okay, so my email address is Sandy at sandypeckinpah.com. And if you email me, I'll put you on my list. And it does go through a process because all emails these days are monitored. So in order to put you on my list, it's going to ask you to confirm. And I promise I don't flood a lot. I think I send out one email a month, and that's it. But I'm going to send out emails about this challenge because I want you to join me. Yes, thank you for doing that. Sandy at Sandy Peckinpah. Cynthia's going to join me. I'm so excited. I've got worksheets. I've got rituals. I've got everything that's going to get you started writing your book, because everyone has a story and everyone's story has value and purpose. Minus the pesky hyphen, the auto wrap ads. Okay, yeah, no hyphen. It's Sandy at sandypeckinpah.com. And so, yay, we're going to start that process. It's going to be a 5-day writing challenge. And you know what? Maybe we'll have to continue because I've got a lot of information I want to share. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for all of the hearts, all of you that participated today. I love your feedback. I love your questions. I love all of it. So I'll be back tomorrow. God bless you and have a great evening. And you know what I did today? I made sauce for lasagna bolognese because, thank you, Chris. You know what? I really appreciated your participation. And Rosie, thank you. I'm so glad. So I've got to go back to making my sauce for lasagna bolognese because that's what we have on Christmas Eve dinner. I am also in the process of making cookies to give away, and I'm so excited. So I'm going to head back to cook because one of my passions besides writing is cooking and baking. I absolutely love it. So this is the time of year that I get to do it to abundance. Merry Christmas, and I love you all for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon. And if you didn't catch all of it, go to replay. And if you feel like this might be of benefit for someone, share it. I'm so glad you joined me today. Bye-bye.